you never really know the one you love. So quite a few lines like that in Muriel by Alain Resnais, which I just watched. I'm just fresh from the final shot. It's a film about a constellation of people, all of whom seem to be in some state of shock or heartbreak or loss, and many of them are being dishonest about the reasons they are doing what they're doing. Let's look at the characters. Delphine Seyrig, wonderful actor who's been in Last Year at Marienbad and India Song by Adira, and the Chantal Akerman, the kind of boring Chantal Akerman potato film that people love. She's Hélène Auguin, a widowed antique dealer, and she's got this sort of obsession with Alphonse, her childhood sweetheart, who she became estranged from. He's returned, but he has a younger lover. He also has a wife who he's not really mentioning, who's off the scene. Bernard, Ellen's stepson, he has a girlfriend called Marie-Do, but he is mentioning to his stepmother quite frequently a woman called Muriel, which is the title of the film. Muriel is a woman he was part of torturing during his military service, and he is a very graphic description of this in the middle of the film, which gives you an insight into his haunted, complex psyche. It's filmed in blue and yellow grey tones with often quite offbeat music, quite percussive sounds coming in and out. The editing itself is very percussive. There are certain motifs of rhythmic cuts between locations. At certain points a scene will just be allowed to let run, and then at other points the pace will massively speed up and you'll see various different moments kind of cut together on a beat almost. It's an interesting one because everything is very busy. There are numerous different plot lines, numerous different needs being met. It seems to be a perfect condensation of cinematic narrative drive and this beautiful languid memory-based cinema that Resnais is kind of associated with. This is a good moment to maybe do a potted history of Alain Resnais as far as I'm aware of him. I've seen the film he made with Chris Marker, which is a sort of essay film about the Bibliothèque Nationale, and his first major piece was Hiroshima Mon Amour, which is a kind of very succinct and wonderfully indulgent marriage of the personal and the political. It depicts a kind of remembered romance set against the backdrop of the Hiroshima bombing, the nuclear bombing. He then makes L'année dernière à Marienbad, Last Year at Marienbad, which is set in a Czech villa, and it's about a relationship that is remembered 1 year on by one of the parties but not the other. Delphine Seyrig is unable to remember this love affair that it was obviously very affecting for the male lead, whose name I cannot remember. And I'm not sure the chronology, but when did Alain Resnais make this film, Muriel? He made it after Marienbad, 2 years after Marienbad. Hiroshima Mon Amour was written, screenplay was written by Marguerite Duras, an excellent filmmaker and author in her own right. Last year, Marienbad was made by Alain Resnais, and Muriel was written by someone called Jean Cairol, who was part of the Tel Quel group, a bunch of French intellectuals. I'm sort of surfing Wikipedia here. But he has a shorter Wikipedia page than Grier and Duras. Nevertheless, Resnais makes a bunch of films after this, none of which I've seen up until Private Fears in Public Places, which is based on an Alan Ayckbourn play. The French title is Cœurs, which means hearts. That is an absolutely awful film. Please don't watch that. If you have seen it, then you'll understand. Really, it makes me worry about getting old. If you can create something as marvellous as Hiroshima Mon Amour, last year Marienbad, and now Muriel, I've now seen, and then make that film, then, there is something to be very concerned about. Luckily, we have people like Godard who continue to push boundaries and innovate and refine their aesthetics as they age. Nevertheless, Muriel is extraordinary. I mean, it's so densely interwoven, and yet it manages to maintain this. He also did Night and Fog, which was co-written by Cairol, the writer of Muriel. Night and Fog was a kind of, again, like the Bibliothèque Nationale film, Toute la Mémoire du Monde, that he made with Chris Marker. Night and Fog was an essay film. It's about the Holocaust. It uses a lot of archive footage. I don't particularly like it. I'm more of the Claude Lanzmann view that moment should more properly be honoured without the use of voiceover or archive, just because I think Lanzmann did it better. I'm not sort of ideological about that, but I suppose I am about the use of kind of horrific footage, but from an aesthetic point of view and from a political point of view. Nevertheless, that's a sort of a detour into something of huge weight and importance, a minor detour into something huge. Muriel is a weighty film. It carries a big load of trauma within it, and it does so with moments of interjections of humour. There's a sort of side plot about goats being breeded. There's the gambling addiction of the protagonist, Hélène, which sort of manifests in her repeatedly asking her friends for money in this kind of sad way. It's all set in Boulogne-sur-Mer, in the very north point of mainland France. I mean, it's all mainland, apart from all those islands they stole. It takes place over the course of 15 days in 5 acts. I'm just reading this is off the Wikipedia. And yeah, the this longest section is the beginning. That this evening when Alphonse arrives and Bernard goes for a walk with Françoise, the younger lover of Alphonse, and kind of susses out what's going on. Meanwhile, Bernard is being pursued by Ernest, the brother-in-law of Alphonse, in connection with this brutal rape and murder of the titular character, Muriel, who we never see, obviously, because she's dead. And in fact, Alphonse is pursuing Bernard as well via this re-encounter with Hélène. So it's a strange kind of love is happening, but love is happening amidst all these other needs. And I suppose that kind of beautifully articulates love, because you have to decipher it from within all these extra motives that are happening in the film. And I think perhaps that's why I maybe prefer it to Marienbad and Hiroshima Mon Amour, because it approaches its topic slightly more indirectly, which I think I prefer when a theme as powerful and painful as heartbreak, loss, is explored indirectly. I think it kind of, through subject matter, through details. There's an awful lot of details. Just a little shot of Alphonse like wiping a stain off of a apron, shots of a little scorpion inside a cigarette box. Loads and loads of details. I mean, the Bernard is making a film constantly, and this process of recording and then deleting is kind of a way in to his soul. He's not giving very much away, and he smiles quite a lot and seems happy quite often. But he has that quality of not, in one moment, not seeming to mind about very much, and then certain things grasp him. Certain things are of huge importance. Serig's character, Alain, the main character, has this real strung out, needy energy. It's written all over her face what she wants, and she's not really getting it, and she's spinning and spinning. Alphonse, his energy is calm and collected, but also cruel and cold. He's got a sort of avuncular arrogance. He seems dishonest. He's sort of always available and yet, quite opaque. Françoise, the young actress, having the affair with Alphonse. She's kind of ambivalent, coquettish, charming. You sort of wonder whether her and Bernard might have something, and they kind of flirt in a strange sort of way. It sort of comes up as that dynamic is kind of blown up and then burst very quickly. Marie Du, the girlfriend. I mean, not much to say about these smaller characters, but Marie Du makes herself sort of available to this unavailable Bernard, but she has also got other plans. Wants to shuffle off out of Boulogne. And then there's this chap who's kind of a pal, Roland de Smoke, who chaperones Delphine Hélène over to the casino. Oh no, that's Claudie. Claudie does that. Roland de Smoke, which one's he? Oh, he's another bald one. Anyway, but at that point, I mean, it's not really important. They're all just French people. But Bernard, Robert, it's very strange, kind of sinister character, Robert. I guess he's made more sinister by the story we're told in the middle of the film. But that is also haunting Bernard. A devil on the shoulder, almost like some kind of metaphor for the way that guilt and addiction and trauma haunt people. The character of Robert, the fellow soldier, the guy who's right next to and kind of leading the torture of this young woman, Muriel. And then this is just the cast list. Françoise, no, sorry, that's the name of the actor. Simone, the wife of Alphonse, who appears right at the end of the film, wandering through the flat, looking for him, Hélène's flat. And then the man with the goat, who is kind of facilitating a necessary kind of strand of levity, but also brevity. It's an hour and 56 minutes, and it kind of flies by, to be honest. It's very engaging. There's always something going on. The pace, the level of gesture. I mean, at the start of it, you feel almost like it's like some kind of Bresson parody, the way that it cycles through images. I mean, there's a great Bresson film, Une femme douce, a gentlewoman, which has a few scenes which have amazing montage of gesture, touch, and objects, and so on. One gets a real sense of plenty in this film. Lots and lots of things have been filmed. It's very tight, much tighter, I think, than the more languid, poetic Hiroshima and Last Year at Marienbad, which is just so full of repetition. This film doesn't have as much repetition, but it is preoccupied by memory, and I think Resnais' work of this era is characterized by, he dares to tell, not show, which is this rule that we're always told about films, and it's largely true, because when you do hear someone recounting a story verbally in a film, it's not a podcast, so it's very easy to sort of, it's not, or a book, so it's very easy to switch off a little bit. I mean, the stories in Resnais films are either usually very simple or told very grippingly. I have to say, the central story, I had to rewind a little bit just to really feel the weight of it, as I was a little bit distracted, a little bit tired. But it's incredibly well written, that story, and very affecting. And it kind of creates the hinge of the film, really. And once you know this context, you've heard like sort of extracts from it earlier on, as the nosy and nefarious Alphonse sifts through these personal notes of Bernard. And that's the thing, I think, even though Bernard has committed worse crimes than Alphonse, you have more sympathy for Bernard because he seems more in touch with his conscience, and therefore he's more tortured. That's how I feel about it right now. I am very much in the immediate throes of having seen it. I'm pretty sure it's a film I'll return to. It's pretty much a film for which there will be the time of return. But yeah, I'm very touched, affected by this film. I spent most of this film feeling. I sat down with some chocolate shreddies and strawberries in milk, and I didn't know whether this was going to be eating my greens or a roller coaster ride of art house ecstasy, and it was closer to the latter than the former. But yeah, I felt quite there's an ache in my heart for much of it. On that note, you're listening to MoobTube. My name's Ralph. This is a solo effort, because I think it's nice to get these spontaneous reactions to things, as I did for the Knight of Cups, as Owen did for Godzilla and Tokyo Story last season, And I believe he will do one for Bella Tarr's Satan Tango. I don't think we're going to do a collaborative episode this week. I think it's going to be these solos because we're out there busy making films in the next couple of weeks. And for us, making films is sort of more important than talking about them. But you can't really have one without the other. We are like the Kaye blokes, but with a USB interface. But yeah, thank you for listening. If you've seen it, I hope this memory of it, this instant memory of it, conjured your own memories of the film well. And you may want to see it again. If you haven't seen it, I hope it inspires you to seek it out. There's a very nice transfer of it because it was released on Blu-ray somewhere in the world. America, probably. Alright. Goodbye.